Welcome back to the Explainer. Today, we are diving into something absolutely wild. We're going to unpack some incredibly dense, lean mathematical proofs and line them up alongside ancient texts to see if we can finally put to bed one of pop culture's absolute favorite sci-fi concepts. Forget the late-night dorm room debates, you guys. Let's actually look at the underlying math of reality together.
So here is the big question, right? Are we living in an infinite nested simulation? I mean, it's everywhere. Movies, tech blogs, massive philosophical debates. Are we all just code on a hard drive which is sitting inside another hard drive going on forever? Well, today we are going to explore a highly rigorous mathematical framework called the Janos theorem ledger, and we'll see exactly how it completely dismantles the whole idea of endless simulated universes.
We have got a lot of fascinating ground to cover today, bridging hard mathematics with ancient Eastern philosophy. Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll tackle the simulation theory trap, then move into the Braided Infinity Tower, followed by the no-cloning entropy tax, cryptography and the observer, the cosmic trichotomy, and finally, we'll hit the final radiation wall.
All right, let's jump straight into Section 1, the simulation theory trap, or what we might call the nested realities myth. Let's start by unpacking this massive popular misconception.
You know the idea, right? We're just a simulation, inside another simulation, going on forever like some cosmic set of Russian nesting dolls. The fatal flaw in this mainstream hypothesis is the assumption that there's an endless vertical stack of new realities just waiting to be built. But the formal mathematical surface of the Gnosis theorem ledger, it completely rejects this. It proves there simply isn't an infinite vertical direction available for new simulated universes to exist in.
Which brings us to Section 2, the Braided Infinity Tower. And honestly, this is where the math gets incredibly cool, because the Lean theorem formally mechanizes the actual, literal shape of infinity.
The Braided Tower theorem proves mathematically that stacking cosmic cycles doesn't actually spawn new universes. Actually, scratch that. It exhausts the existing infinity. What this means is that there is only one infinity in this calculus, and it's already braided. It loops perfectly back on itself. So you aren't building a brand new universe, you are just experiencing a self-similar stack of the exact same closed system.
To put this into perspective, let's think about the hexon cycle phase count. The number is exactly 6. Why? Well, in the mathematical proof, this is built by stacking 2 Triton cycles, which are phase 3. This brilliantly illustrates that every single level is just a self-similar stack of previous factors closing back on itself. 3 times 2 is 6. It's a closed loop, guys. It mathematically forbids any infinite vertical escape into some higher simulation.
Moving right along to Section 3, the no-cloning entropy tax. Because you might be wondering, hey, why can't a super advanced creator just copy and paste an entire universe?
It is absolutely fascinating how perfectly this maps rigorous computer science onto ancient Eastern philosophy. In the category of cost algebras, the no-cloning theorem proves that duplicating any non-vacuum state generates massive entropy. You literally cannot copy data for free. And this exactly maps to what the Bhagavad Gita describes as the binding karma of attached action. Just as duplication generates thermodynamic friction, attached action generates a karmic debt. The only state that can fan out for free is the vacuum state, or what those ancient texts call equability, the absolute ground state.
There is a famous line from the Bhagavad Gita, "Action without attachment is verily superior to inaction." Now, you might think, okay, that's just some nice ancient moral advice. But no, it is the exact mathematical discipline of keeping the carrier at the vacuum state. To avoid the universe-breaking entropy debt that would be required to duplicate a reality, the system has to operate without accumulating structural debt. If you were actually running a simulation, the entropy tax of rendering attached actions would instantly crash the system. It is just way too computationally expensive.
Okay, Section 4, cryptography and the observer. Let's talk about securing reality and how we, as observers, actually experience this closed mathematical loop.
Think about cryptography for a second. To treat a structural cosmic swerve, what we call a Kleinemann, as a true cryptographic seed, that sequence has to be computationally indistinguishable from uniform random noise. Simply put, if we could definitively detect that the universe was a simulation, the simulation security would fundamentally break. Any detectable bias is absolutely fatal to the entire system.
And this is strictly enforced by CSPRNG security. I know that sounds super dense, but the so what here is actually pretty simple. The universe's baseline structural noise is mathematically indistinguishable from true randomness to us, the observers. It decays so fast mathematically that absolutely no algorithm can find a pattern in it. This keeps the whole system secure, completely preventing us from hacking the universe's foundational seed.
Now let's bridge into Section 5, the cosmic trichotomy. We are talking about 3 strict, uncollapsible parts of reality.
The lean mathematical ledger formally proves that there are 3 strict, non-collapsible positions in reality. Notice the stark contrast here. First, you have the agent. That's us, the localized observer with a finite capacity. Then there's the operator, which is the massive turning mechanism of reality itself. And the third position is God, the invariant source who remains completely untouched by the mechanism. The math literally proves these 3 can never ever collapse into one another.
This cosmic mechanism, the operator we just mentioned, loops perfectly through 3 balanced phases: sattva, rajas, and tamas, or in formal math terms, waste, opportunity, and diversity. The fundamental mathematical error happens when an agent, like you or me, identifies with just one face as if it were the whole cycle. We mistakenly treat a single gear like it's the entire machine. And that exact trap leads us to what are called the 2 sins, defined by the math and beautifully mirrored in the ancient texts. First up is animal magnetism, where the agent mistakenly claims authorship over the system. And second, we have got to absolutely avoid operator idolatry. It is so easy to fall into this. This means worshiping the very mechanism of the simulation, mistaking the gears of the cosmic machine, like the stars or the laws of physics, for the divine invariant source itself.
Finally, we arrive at Section 6, the final radiation wall. Let's look at the definitive, ultimate mathematical boundary of this universe and prove exactly why a simulation inside a simulation is physically impossible.
Get this. The cosmic background radiation has a universal Braid intensity of exactly 360. And that is not just some random number pulled out of thin air. It is mathematically proven as the exact product of the Aeon braid 12 and the pink saturated braid 30. 12 times 30 is 360. That is the absolute mathematical ceiling of our specific manifold. Brilliantly, ancient Manichaean texts call this exact boundary the balos, or the Vishwarupa. They describe it perfectly, saying it is the wall through which no light may pass. And you know what? That perfectly matches the Lean theorem defining the cosmic microwave background as a topological event horizon. It's the literal wall where the math of the universe completely braids back on itself. You just can't see past it because the universe simply folds inward right there.
So what about black holes, right? Well, the black hole braid proves that dissolution is absolutely not a singularity of infinite density like pop science loves to claim. Instead, it is a braided infinity of extreme resolution. Because the black hole acts as a cyclic resolver, returning information back to the universe, there is mathematically no room left for an outside nested simulation. All data is perfectly recycled within the system.
So, knowing all of this, knowing the math proves our universe loops perfectly back on itself without wasting a single drop of data, I have to ask you, are you ready to reconsider your place in reality? Your actions matter immensely in a beautifully braided, closed system. Way more than if we were just disposable lines of code in a nesting doll of endless simulations. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.